This week on Jersey Matters, the man who made national news by defeating longtime Senate President Steve Sweeney. So what's next for Senator-elect Ed Durr? The Wall Township High School hazing case is the first since New Jersey's new anti-hazing law, named after Timothy Piazza, who was killed by a hazing incident at Penn State in 2017. We talk with his parents, Jim and Evelyn. Nick Pittman will have the winter weather outlook, and great news, the New Jersey Special Olympics are back. Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Let's get right to my interview with truck driver Ed Durr, who pulled off an improbable election upset against Senate President Steve Sweeney in Gloucester County. Senator-elect Durr, thank you so much for making some time for us. How does that sound? How does it sound to hear Senator-elect?
Still trying to get used to it. I don't answer well to it very well right now.
Well, pretty soon it'll be Senator. Look, you really shocked the world. Nobody saw this coming. As a matter of fact, during election night, not many people were even paying attention to the race. It was a surprise to everybody. Was it a surprise to you?
Yes and no. I mean, I knew that there was a possibility because I'm a numbers guy. I looked at the numbers and I knew that if I did the work and the people came out and vote, which they did come out to vote, I knew there was a possibility. And as we were sitting on the couch and my son-in-law was reading off the numbers, every once in a while I kept inching closer, and I knew the reality was coming closer.
Now, I know you did an excellent job campaigning, but there's more to this election than that, isn't there? The voters were trying to say something. What was it?
Well, everybody was focused on taxes and the cost of living, and they are very important issues in New Jersey. As you well know, that our taxes are one of the highest. We have the worst business and climate. But the reality is this was more about an individual's inalienable rights. Things were taken away from individuals since 2020, since March of 2020. You were told you couldn't go to church. Your jobs were shut down. You couldn't earn a living. Then your kids are forced to wear masks in schools. And then you were, closed off. You couldn't even spend time with your loved one in the hospital. They had to be in the hospital alone. This was just too much for Americans to take. And I could see that. And then, the infractions on parents with their raising their children. Parents do not like it when you mess with their kids.
I get that. You defeated one of the most powerful state politicians in the country. Have you spoken with him?
Yeah, we spoke on Wednesday when he gave his concession speech.
And what was that conversation like?
It was a pleasant conversation. We just, talked about, me moving forward, that my ultimate goal is to make New Jersey a better place for all citizens, and that I am going to be focused on helping South Jersey, my district. And then as I said on Tucker, I'm your representative. Just give me a call if you ever need anything.
Have you spoken to the governor? The governor, I think, called you dangerous.
Yes, he called me dangerous there. So, we spoke on Friday. He actually called me and congratulated me, and he said he just hopes that we can work together. And I told him that'd be great if we're working together to make New Jersey better for the people. But if not, and I left it at that.
You got a taste of the cancel culture a little bit. They dug up some old tweets of yours, and I was really impressed at the way you handled it and the fact that you met with Muslim leaders. What did you learn from the entire experience?
Well, as I said in the interview, that it's very easy to do something from behind a keyboard. As my county chair, Jackie Vigilante, had said in her press conference, that I had kind of been a keyboard warrior in the past, but now I'm going to be a warrior in Trenton, fighting for the people. So I'm moving forward to focus on making New Jersey better.
You said something after you met with the Muslim leaders that I heard you say that I thought was very profound. And you said, when you see somebody face to face, and I might be misquoting you, you can give me the exact quote, but the essence was, when you meet somebody, when you see somebody face to face, it's hard to hate. I thought it was very profound at the time. Do you feel like in the past you didn't have that type of interaction?
Well, yeah, it's very easy to sit behind the keyboard and just make a comment because you don't know the person, you don't know their soul, their individuality about them, and so it's very easy to make an insulting comment. When you actually are standing in front of somebody and you're speaking to them, you get a sense of them, and it's very hard to be mean. I mean, unless you're just a mean person, which I am not. So that is something that I think we need to get back to. This computer separation has taken away that interaction. People need to have more of an interaction, because there's more interaction, there's going to be less conflict.
And we also should allow people to grow, because everybody does stupid things. And it's nice that you were able to grow from that and see that it was a problem in the past and fix the problem. And I think that's admirable. I think a lot of people see you and see themselves. Speaking of which, you were a truck driver at Raymore and Flanagan. Are you going to continue driving the truck?
Well, I just worked yesterday, and I plan on going back to work after my vacation. I am juggling things right now, but as you well know, New Jersey's legislatures are considered part-time employees. They receive no medical benefits, and I need medical insurance. So I will continue to drive. I just will probably have to change my scheduling, because I'm going to be needed up in Trenton to fight for the people. Larry, I just want to point out one thing. This
Sure.
was not just me. This was a team effort. As I said, you had Jackie Vigilante, our county chair. You had Steve Cush, our political consultant. And then my running mates, Beth Ann McCarthy Patrick and Beth Sawyer, along with county commissioners who also won, Chris Conwell and Nick DeSilvio. And then you had Jonathan Sammons, the first African-American sheriff who won in Claus County. This was a complete team effort. I analogize it as a football team. You have your head coach in Jack, you have your offensive coordinator in Steve, and then you have your players, and everybody needs to do their job. And we all did our job, and we got in the end zone.
Well, it's well said. I also think it's even more than that. I know it's a team effort. I believe it was a movement, and you were at the head of that movement. You become the face of that movement. And that's why I talked about the power just a moment ago. You have an opportunity here that most people don't have. And the question is, how are you going to use it? What's the first thing you're going to do? What do you see as your job when you go to Trenton?
Well, my job is to make life better for the citizens and help them, and I'm to respond to them. You're not supposed to close yourself off and not be reachable. I am always reachable, and I am going to take their problems as they send me the emails or voicemails or send me a letter, which I've received many since the election day, and I'm going to focus on doing those things. I have some areas that I want to address in the, once I get in office, one being special needs, so I do want to move forward with that. And I think I would find it hard for Democrats to go against special needs children. So I think this is something we can work together on.
I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Ed Durr, Senator-elect from the 3rd Legislative District in South Jersey. Coming up next, we speak with Jim and Evelyn Piazza. Their son died because of a hazing incident, and now a law in his name will be put to the test in Wall Township. The story is next. In 2017, during a fraternity hazing at Penn State University, New Jersey native Timothy Piazza was killed. Since then, his parents have been lobbying for stricter hazing laws across the country. 2 months ago, Governor Murphy signed the Timothy Piazza anti-hazing bill into law in New Jersey. And now that law is being tested for the first time with a hazing case at Wall Township High School. I interviewed Jim and Evelyn Piazza about the case. Jim and Evelyn, thanks so much for joining us. We wanted to talk to you today because there is now a new hazing law, I say a couple of months ago, hazing law in New Jersey named after your son. And we had the first case of hazing at a high school at Wall Township High School since that bill was signed into law. Jim, how will your law, the law named after your son, affect this case?
Well, I think it's going to require the prosecutor and the police to look harder at what happened at this particular situation. And if it's determined that it was in fact hazing, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to use the law to prosecute the individuals. And, you know, the governor was very clear and when we met with him when he signed the law, saying that it's stupid. If it happens, we're going to prosecute and sentence people appropriately.
Yeah, the Monmouth County prosecutor has already taken over the case, so it is going to be investigated criminally. Evelyn, when you heard about this hazing case, did you think, my God, we still haven't grown? You've done so much work, and here we are again with a hazing case in New Jersey.
Unfortunately, hazing really starts in middle school and high school, and we ourselves haven't gotten to speak a lot to that audience, but it does need to be addressed in the lower grades so that it doesn't carry forward to college.
It does need to be addressed. And Jim, if I can talk to you again, are you disappointed? Because it sounds like we had a case in 2014 in Sayreville as well. Are you disappointed that coaches, I would assume, aren't really driving this home, that this cannot happen, that under this law, you're going to be charged criminally?
Yeah, so I think people, they're not paying attention and they're not thinking about the consequences. I mean, we've been all over the country talking to colleges and universities and fraternities and sororities. We haven't, because it's just impossible to get everywhere to hit all the high schools and earlier schools. So I don't know that they realize the magnitude of what's happening is criminal behavior, and it results in bad behavior and dangerous behavior eventually. And we think the only way that this is going to get eradicated is if people see arrests, prosecutions, and appropriate sentencing. And without it, it's just a law that nobody pays attention to.
Yeah, Evelyn, I guess I don't understand hazing. I don't understand why someone would take place in that. I know you're not a psychologist, but certainly you've been studying this now for a long time and traveling across the country and dealing with these cases. Do you understand why this happens?
It's an exertion of power and control, and it's for the existing members to make the new members or potential new members earn their way in and do whatever is required of them to prove their loyalty and commitment. It's not any sort of tradition or anything that really should be upheld. That's not how you run a team or a band or a fraternal organization. So it's really frustrating to watch.
And let me stay with you for a second, Evelyn. Since you kind of understand why it happened, how do you stop it?
I think you really need to get multiple layers. I think you need to address it in schools. You need to let parents know, and parents need to address it with their kids. And kids need to know what's happening to them is hazing, or what they're doing is considered hazing, because they may not even realize it. They may just think that they're asking people to do these feats or chores to prove themselves, and not realizing that what they're doing is a downhill slope and causing harm.
Right, it could cause incarceration for the people that are doing it too. Jim, what would you like to say to the Sayreville? Their high schools never recovered. Wall Township, they've had to cancel their Thanksgiving game, and parents are upset, and they won't probably recover for a long time. What would you like to say to high school administrators and coaches who may be listening?
Just be aware, listen up, listen to our story, understand what happened to our situation, and understand the law, and make sure that you're educating your students, your faculty, your athletic leaders, so that this behavior is just, nipped in the bud and really doesn't happen. I mean, we've come a long way in 4 years, but there's still a lot of work to do, and we can't do it alone. This is an effort that everybody needs to take part of, including the parents. So education is critical, and no better place than the middle schools and the high schools. A good friend of mine is the principal of a high school, and he's all over it, and he understands it. And we need folks like that really pushing it down through the system.
You've had the laws changed in several states. How is the push going across the country?
I think it's going well. I mean, it's still slow. There's several states that we have gotten pushback from because they don't want to do increased reporting, or they're concerned about what it's going to do to the reputation of their universities in certain states. But there are a lot of states that have come along, and we've seen prosecutions as a result of law changes. And so I think it's going to start to take effect. And once people see they could go to jail and they could end up in a courtroom spending hundreds of thousands of dollars defending themselves that's not covered by insurance, parents are going to say, whoa, we don't want that. So they're going to talk to their kids and say, stay away from it.
Yeah, Evelyn, another way to teach people is to show the effects that it has on a family and what can happen to a family. I thought about you and Jim coming into the holidays. Does it ever go away? Is it get easier at all?
Not really, no. Holidays are painful. We will always have that empty chair, and we will always be missing our son. And you just learn to live with the grief for the most part. Some days it can really take you down, and other days you can get through it and you can smile and laugh, but it never goes away. The pain is always there. The fact that somebody chose to harm your child and then didn't help them is unbearable.
And you have an anniversary coming up too in February.
Yeah, it'll be 5 years. Unbelievably.
Thank you so much for spending the time. I admire the both of you so much. I admire people that take a personal tragedy and turn it into something positive to stop it from happening again. So God bless you in your travels and success. Jim and Evelyn Piazza, National Anti-Hazing Advocates. Still to come on Jersey Matters.
An assisted living community in our area is using virtual reality to reduce the isolation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. More on that story next.
Welcome back. An assisted living community in Middlesex County is using virtual reality to help reduce the isolation caused by COVID-19. But Jennifer Marin explains that reducing isolation isn't the only benefit. Jen.
Larry, when residents put on these virtual reality glasses, they're transported to new experiences, or in some cases, familiar ones. And they tell me these things have made all the difference.
Okay, put on your seatbelts. We're going for a hot air balloon ride.
Virtual reality is quite the hit.
These balloons were filmed in Portugal.
At the Parker at Stonegate, an assisted living community in Highland Park.
It beats most TV.
It's been a very, very uplifting experience.
I loved it when I saw it the first time.
These virtual reality headsets operate through the Rendeavor platform. Parker decided to use the technology to help residents deal with the difficulties brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Social isolation was a concern for everybody, whether you lived in a senior community or you lived in your own home. And this was just one tool in our toolkit to kind of help support our efforts to reduce that isolation for our own residents.
97-year-old Robert Gutworth has lived at Parker for over 10 years. He says the new technology has helped him throughout the pandemic.
It takes us away from the ennui of this pandemic that we're in, and we can really get away from the place and away into something surreal.
But the technology doesn't just help reduce isolation. It also helps residents with terminal illnesses or cognitive decline reminisce about good times in their lives.
At one of our homes, there was a resident receiving hospice services, and when the rec team said, "Would you like to try this?" she said, "Certainly, I'll give it a shot." And she had said to them, "I visited the Grand Canyon a long time ago and I'd love to go back there." They were actually able to take her on the experience, and she was so appreciative because she always wanted to get back there, and now she was able to do that through virtual reality. So like what a very cool experience for her and for our staff to be able to share that.
Rendeavor introduces new programs every month. Live experiences are offered twice a week with a guide, talking residents through tours of countries and more.
I would like to see more of Italy, France.
It's an eye-opening experience for 94-year-old Catherine Sorbonne.
I wasn't a world traveler, that's for sure. When I watch anything like that on television, I feel like I'm there. Now this is even better.
83-year-old Maggie Robbins says VR has given her a renewed sense of independence.
Parker offers a whole lot, and I'm so glad I'm here. But I miss the independence and the freedom and getting out and doing. I don't drive anymore, and so this is very nice.
The virtual reality headsets use a 360-degree approach. If residents are not comfortable using a headset, they can enjoy the experience on a tablet or a television.
The virtual reality program has been so successful, it's now being used at all 5 Parker communities. For now, reporting in Highland Park, for Jersey Matters, I'm Jennifer Marin.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Next on Jersey Matters.
Many people think of Christmas carols and wrapping gifts under the tree when they think of the holidays, but for others, it takes on a whole new meaning. We'll have that story coming up next on Jersey Matters.
Welcome back. It's that time of year again. People are getting together with families to reunite and spend the holidays together. But many people dealing with substance abuse issues dread this time of year. Jersey Matters' Kimberly Kravitz has the story.
Holiday blues can lead to a spike in substance abuse, especially for those who have to spend the holidays alone.
And I come from a very prideful, Irish family. And I just said, I can't hide my story anymore just because I feel like too many people are dying because of that. So
Patrick Cronin is one of the thousands of people who had to be away from his family during the holidays.
I do remember for, many, many years in a row, I was not home Thanksgiving or Christmas. So now that I see that, I'm with my family for many years now straight, I just know that can be taken away from you in a heartbeat, though. Recovery is something that you have to keep in check every single day. So I think that's part of my reflections.
The loss of a loved one can be devastating, and during the holidays, the feeling of grief can be amplified.
Well, it's triggering for people. You can feel all alone. It looks, especially with social media, it looks like everybody is connected and surrounded by family and loved ones.
Pamela Capassi, CEO of Hope Sheds Light, encourages anyone who is suffering to ramp up their meetings and boost up their support system.
Both NA and AA offer conventions, which are really kind of 24-hour meetings, or they have activities that are happening every day of the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Shannon Clarkson, a New Jersey woman who is now 6 years sober, says that Thanksgiving and Christmas are just as difficult as any other day.
I don't feel like any specific day or reason affects people. I think for me, I can only speak for myself, but for myself, I didn't need a reason, a holiday, or anything to drink. Like, I have a disease of alcoholism, so I'm not sure that it has anything really to do with the drinking so much anymore. I don't have a desire to drink, so I feel like when you do what you're supposed to be doing and take action, that obsession has been lifted, but the emotional sobriety is what gets to you.
The COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown created a huge spike in substance abuse as well.
I think that kind of changes things, because I think that people are already drinking. What we've seen, like numbers have skyrocketed with drinking during COVID. So then you throw COVID in there with the holidays. I think you're gonna get kind of an explosion for that.
Cronin, who is now a counselor himself, is proud to be able to return to his family holiday dinners and is more grateful than ever.
I mean, I'm grateful. It's the best thing now that I get to be with my family.
But there is help available. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health National Hotline, 1-800-662-4357, offers free, confidential, and 24/7 resources for anyone interested. Reporting for Jersey Matters, I'm Kimberly Kravitz.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. He was the Republican mayor in Atlantic City, a city dominated for decades by Democrats. And now Don Guardian is going to join a Democratic assembly in Trenton. Here's my interview with Assemblyman-elect Don Guardian, who is already out doing the job. Assemblyman-elect, thank you so much for joining us today and making time for us. I know you're having a busy day. Tell us where you're at right now.
So, Larry, great to be back with you and see you. We missed last year the League of Municipalities down here in Atlantic City, but we're back. It's made up of all the mayors, senators, assemblymen, and so many of the people that work in government that are coming here to make sure that they have all of their certificates certified, as well as being able to meet and greet so many of the other people that are going to be making decisions for residents of our state.
So tell us what the big topic of discussion is down there.
Well, certainly taxes are number one, public safety. People are concerned after COVID. Are we going to have the jobs for businesses that we lost? How are we going to bring them back? How are we going to keep them functioning? And how are we going to pay for our schools? Because at some point, people are very concerned that you can't put the burden just on property taxpayers.
So people aren't talking about the election and the election results?
Well, of course they are. I'm trying to be a little bit humble here. Certainly they're excited to see some of us. I think that we're elected. It's great for me to see so many familiar faces from North Central and South Jersey, for Democrats and independents as well as Republicans. And I really look forward to working with everyone as we move forward.
Now, you won as a Republican, and you're going now into a Democratic government. You're kind of used to this.
Yeah, this is what I've grown up with. I know that the way that we move forward is making sure that people realize what the needs are here, and they're varied. Certainly the urban communities of Pleasantville and Atlantic City are slightly different than those at the western end of our town, the Mullicas and the Buena Vistas. And so we need to address all of them.
I read a lot about your win and the coverage of your win, and I wanted to see what they said about you. And every article pointed out the same thing, and it's quite an accomplishment. You are the first openly gay state legislator. It was interesting to me that they led with that because you've done so much in your career. How do you feel about that coverage?
Well, I think it's very exciting. It shows a new time in New Jersey where being openly gay is not a reason not to be elected to public office. It also is more representative of what New Jersey is today. So I'm glad to be here. I certainly am going to represent South Jersey and the people of New Jersey in general, and that certainly includes the LGBTQ community. As you know, when I was mayor, I was very concerned about equality issues for everyone, and it certainly includes our family.
Right. And so that's not your primary focus as you go in. Your primary focus are the people of South Jersey, but you certainly are aware of the importance of your position.
I do, and I am aware of it, but you're right. I'm going to be concerned about creating jobs, about trying to figure out how we can lower taxes. There's a lot of new programs that the state is providing to help small business and medium-sized businesses. And then, of course, there's a lot of money coming from Washington as well. I just want to make sure we get our fair share here down in Atlantic County.
Right. You were part of a red wave in South Jersey. We just talked to Ed Durr before we spoke with you, who was part of that red wave. What does it mean?
So I think in Atlantic County, from 6 months ago or more, we were all together. We were representing all of the different communities that had someone running as a Republican, and we tied in with all of our county representatives as well. We walked together. We went house to house together. We made phone calls together. So it was a very unified look. When I was out there, the Democrats didn't have that. A van would pull up with Philadelphia plates, and they have 3 or 4 people come out with a uniform and a pad. They had no idea where they were. So they bought the people that went out to try to go door to door, but they didn't have that local support. Republicans, for the first time in a long time, will really join together in Atlantic County, and certainly Jack did very well down here. I think we were together at least 17 times during the campaign, and then it showed with the support that the county gave him as well. But he didn't win, and I've worked with Democrats before, and I'll be working with this governor as well. We want to do the good things for the state.
It's interesting that you're making it all local. You're saying that that the Republican Party in Atlantic County outworked the Democratic Party. Many people are making it, are tying it into Virginia, are talking about the Ed Durr win, how shocking that is, and seeing a bigger meaning to all of this. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. There's no one that people dislike right now in the Republican Party. So there's a lot of concern about how our governor handled COVID and what's going on in Washington, D.C. So there's no question that the country is wanting a change, and they don't feel they're being represented. And I think that's a real strong point that goes across the board of why Republicans have done so well this time.
Well, I'm glad that you were part of that change. You've always been welcoming to us. We've had you on several times back when you were mayor of Atlantic City and in other jobs as well. So I wish you great luck, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Larry, thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing this interview, and I look forward to talking to you about critical issues to our communities as time moves on.
Assemblyman-elect from Atlantic County, Don Guardian. Coming up next on Jersey Matters, weatherman Nick Pittman tells us what's in store for this winter with his winter outlook. Next. Welcome back. After a pandemic that brought with it a host of other problems, we sure could use a break from nasty winter weather this upcoming season. Are we going to get it? Here's weatherman Nick Pittman with the answer and his winter weather outlook. Nick.
The leaves in the trees have finally turned bright, vibrant colors, and the crisp fall air is settling in place after a long stretch of warmer than normal temperatures. So yeah, it's only natural that folks are starting to think about winter, right? I think it's human nature that people always want to know what's coming up in the next season, even if it's a few months out. It's what we do. Look, I've broken out the snow tie bow tie because it's time for our annual winter forecast. And I know there are a lot of myths and folklores out there that might have you believing the winter is going to play out a certain way. how many acorns are on the ground in your backyard, how bushy a squirrel's tail is, or maybe even what the Farmer's Almanac has to say. You see, none of that is actually based in any kind of science. I could stand here and in a couple sentences tell you exactly how I think things are going to be playing out, but that's boring. Where's the fun in that? Don't you want to understand the why behind the what and know what factors go into the winter forecast? I think so. Let's get started. Now, before we get down to the nitty-gritty, I think it's important to understand that any long-range forecast needs to be taken with a very tiny grain of salt. We've got billions of dollars worth of technology at our disposal. We have all kinds of data. We can look at past years and say, hey, these things are lining up very similar, and this is what we can expect to happen based on historical precedent. But at the end of the day, Mother Nature is going to do her own thing and have her last laugh. Last year was a La Nina year. This year is going to be a La Nina year, and a lot of you made out very well with snowfall west of the coastal areas. Over 20 inches of snow at my house in Blackwood at the time. I-95 did very well. North Jersey got pummeled, and I expect there to be a very active pattern this year. But no years are dependent on one another. They're not tied together. So it doesn't necessarily mean the same conditions are going to be playing out. Climatology dictates what the overall pattern does, what is most historically likely. Again, we are in a La Nina year this year, so that means that the Pacific Northwest is going to be very active. Typically speaking, you'll get a ridge of high pressure somewhere over the Gulf of Alaska, and then a dip down into the lower 48. Where that dip happens is going to determine ultimately where the storms end up. So you have the moisture coming in off of the Pacific Ocean, allowing those storms to pummel areas of the Pacific North and West, and then they get right down into the Ohio Valley and can impact our area. So we are expecting cooler than normal weather across the northern tier of the country and the warmer stuff down to the south. The question is, how far north does that warmth get? Is it into our area? It's going to be very active no matter what happens, with two areas of concern, Pacific Northwest and the Ohio Valley, and oftentimes in a La Nina pattern, we can see that activity get right down into our area. So we look at, yes, the overall pattern from La Nina, but we also look at these shorter range patterns that are dictated by upper air oscillations. One of the main things we look at is the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is called the Greenland Block. When it's in its negative phase, the storm track is more favorable for East Coast snow. The Pacific North America pattern, I think, does a better job of kind of directing the overall winter pattern, because that will dictate whether Pacific air is going to make it into our area. If you're a snow lover, if you're a cold weather lover, you want the Pacific North America pattern, the PNA, in its positive phase, which would put high pressure over the west and a dip in the jet stream over the east, bringing us that colder weather. That, combined with the negative NAO, brings the favorable storm track into our neck of the woods as well. If the PNA goes negative, then you set up high pressure off the southeast coast, the jet stream goes well north, and we end up roasting for the winter season. Now, in true La Nina fashion, I do expect the coldest weather across the northern tier of the country, the warmer stuff down to the south, and we will likely end up between 1 and 2 degrees above normal. And I think our precipitation forecast is above normal, seeing the activity through the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes right into our area. So I think we're warmer than average, we're more active than average, and I think we're snowier than average as well. I'm going about 25% above where we should be. So snowfall totals right along the coastal plain, 8 to 12 inches from Atlantic City down to Wildwood, 12 to 18 through Millville up to Stafford, 18 to 24 closer to Philly, and right around the Philadelphia metro area, 24 to 30 inches of snow, and 30 plus the farther north and west of I-95 you go. So there's going to be a lot of volatility. We're going to see a lot of back and forth, and we will be here every step of the way to get you through whatever Mother Nature throws our way. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nor'easter Nick for all your winter weather needs. I'm Nor'easter Nick for Jersey Matters.
Jersey Matters weatherman Nick Pittman, next on Jersey Matters.
Eifel Anderson coming up will tell you how the Special Olympics in New Jersey volunteers and athletes survived almost a year-long shutdown because of COVID-19.
Welcome back. During the height of the pandemic, Special Olympics New Jersey managed to keep their athletes engaged, but virtually. Now, as Phil Andrews explains, it's once again game on, live and in person. Phil.
Well, Larry, I'm here at the Special Olympics New Jersey headquarters in Lawrenceville. And during the pandemic, the folks inside this building had to come up with some creative ways to keep their Special Olympic athletes engaged during the lockdown. As a matter of fact, prior to the statewide COVID-19 shutdown, the last major event for New Jersey Special Olympians was the Winter Games here at the Mountain Creek Resort in Warren County. The shutdown forced cancellation also of the Spring Games and all major events for about 20 months. So what did they do?
We focused on a lot more fitness, especially in those early months when we were in the pandemic and really locked down, getting our athletes to get steps in, getting outside, going for a walk, doing Zumba, doing things online, trying to just get them in that remote capacity to join a class. And so those were the things that we started. We did challenges, total body challenges.
So we're going to start with a little warm up. We have jumping jacks, squats, high knees, and butt kicks. All right. So we need to make sure that we have plenty of room to jump around and move our arms and legs. Is everybody ready?
And what better way to shake off that cabin fever and a few extra pandemic pounds than by getting back outside and into competition mode, which Special Olympics New Jersey was able to do with their fall games at the end of this past October.
We look forward to getting back to normal as much as we can, whatever normal looks like these days. But we learned, we're growing, we're ever changing in how we do things. Making those safety protocols are going to continue to stay in place as long as we need them, and just make sure that everybody can compete and come together, safely and efficiently, and that we can still provide opportunities regardless. We are adding some virtual components of things moving forward, just because we saw a lot of people that are all over the state, can't necessarily get to a games or get to a certain event. So it's great to have that option or that opportunity for them. So anytime we can just better serve our community and better serve our athletes, we're gonna do the best we can to.
Every time I see an athlete in person, it makes me smile. And for athletes that you may have not seen, we joke about, oh, I see you from the neck down, because all we've been seeing is from the neck up. And it's not only the athletes, it's the families. It's talking to a parent at fall games, just it was joy. Joy is in our mission, and I understand what that even means more so now, because it was joy to just to see them back out there in person and doing what they want to do, and the parents are just so proud.
Now, another sign that Special Olympics New Jersey is emerging from its post-pandemic cocoon was their recent Thanks for Giving Dash and Splash event held in Asbury Park. The event included a 5K run on the boardwalk, ending with a splash in the chilly Atlantic Ocean. Ooh, that brings on a whole new meaning to the term freezing for a reason. That reason? Raising over $80,000. By the way, the folks here at Special Olympics New Jersey, they have these kind of fundraisers throughout the year so they can continue to help serve Special Olympians throughout the Garden State. In Lawrenceville, for Jersey Matters, I'm Phil Andrews.
All right, thank you, Phil. My commentary is next. Virtue. It's a word that is barely used anymore. Simply put, virtue is a behavior that shows a high moral standard. Maybe it's not used anymore because it doesn't exist anymore. The only time we really hear the word anymore is in a negative way, in the modern expression virtue signaling, which is a way of putting down someone who is only giving their opinion to show their moral superiority on the issue. The problem with virtue signaling is that it's often used to show how much you hate someone or something. For instance, these "hate has no home here" signs that popped up on lawns all across the country when Donald Trump was president, it was more anti-Trump than anti-hate. Because when you asked the homeowners how they felt about Donald Trump, I just hate him, I hate him, I hate him. But I thought hate had no home in your home. By the way, those "hate had no home here" signs were vandalized and destroyed more than any other yard signs, which is, Ironic. Virtue signaling is a euphemism for fake virtue. It's not used to lift someone up, it's used to make someone look bad, so it's not a virtue at all. Maybe virtue is just impossible in a divided country where we hate people who are different from us, who have a different opinion. How is virtue even possible when we can't be civil or kind to one another? When we define people by their differences instead of embracing what we have in common? It's not that men and women of virtue don't exist. They're actually all around us, helping others with kindness and humility. They're the ones that show up when things are at their worst. They're defined by 4 simple words. How can I help? Men and women of virtue are just turned off by our toxic political climate, a climate that values fake strength over true virtue. The problem is that we need them now. We need people of virtue in leadership positions more than ever. There have been men and women in history who have risen to prominence to heal a divide and fight injustice using the power of virtue. Yes, they were angry, probably even hateful, but they suppressed those feelings because they knew that hate just begets hate and violence begets violence. Thomas Paine, the great American political philosopher, gave intellectual reasoning to the American Revolution when he penned one of the most important works in our nation's history. It was called Common Sense. One of the most important quotes from Common Sense sums up everything I've been trying to say in 4 words. Virtue is not hereditary. Paine was trying to warn us that the principles, that the values that formed American democracy could be corrupted, even destroyed, if we didn't take care. If only Thomas Paine could see us now. But a return to virtue could lead to a new American revolution of kindness and forgiveness that could heal America. This isn't a hollow dream on my part. It's happened before. Mahatma Gandhi brought freedom and independence to the people of India, and he famously did so using the virtues of truth and nonviolence. America's civil rights movement was led by a man who never once spoke of hate, but inspired us all with the visions of a better America.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Never hateful, always inspirational. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. brought a divided country closer together. We sure could use someone like Dr. King or Gandhi right now. With all my being, I want to believe that virtue is not dead, that men and women of virtue are still out there and will rise to lead us when we need them. If you are out there, we need you now. I'm Larry Menti. We'll talk again soon.